We have our president, Dr. Nataraj Ray, and also I am joined by Mr. Darshan Joshi. He has his own consulting firm, which he will share a little bit when I invite him to deliberate on the issue. Actually, these experts, they wanted 2 hours and we planned for 90 minutes. We choose to speak less. I'll request Mr. Guruvinder from NR ISTD headquarters to introduce Dr. Nataraj Ray in brief. He is well-known figure now, but still, and it, a brief introduction of Mr. Nataraj. Guruvinder, then I'll request Mr. Nataraj to speak on the topic.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. So, Dr. Nataraj Ray is a graduate in science and holds a bouquet of professional qualifications. His PG diploma in IR and PM, LWO PG diploma in training development from ISTD. He is also an MBA in HRD, LLB and PhD. He started his career in 1984 as management trainee in the corporate world. He has experience spread over 2 decades in the fields of learning and development, management teaching, industrial teaching, training, and as HRD manager in several industries, specializing in training and development initiatives. He is our current president of ISTD. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Gurvinder ji. Now I will request Mr. Darshan Joshi, Doshi. He is the director of Adaption Consulting, Pune, and his extended arms and eyes are to expert in New Zealand. So Darshan, I will invite you to introduce yourself and also our guest, Mr. Don and Mr. Mark.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Yogesh, for making this possible. It is excellent to organize and to work with Indian Society for Training and Development. A quick introduction, I'm the director for Adaption. Adaption is the sister company of JumpShift. Both companies originated in New Zealand, and we've been focused on leadership development and making people better for almost 10 years now, right? Our presence is felt across the world. We've positively impacted various business leaders in over 30 countries. Quick introduction, Don McVeigh is the director, the New Zealand managing director of JumpShift, which is Adaption's sister company. He brings years of continuous improvement experience from a variety of industries, including engineering, FMCG, aircraft, dairy, and multiple SMEs. He was previously a successful competitive sportsman. He was ranked 3rd in the world in speed skating, as well as 2 times national Mini 7 champion. He has won Global Excellence and CEO awards within industries he has worked with, but he ranks his greatest success as his family and sharing his passion of fishing, sports, and living the Kiwi dream with his son. On the other hand, my colleague Mark Watkins, he is the Vice President of Sales and Delivery. He brings 20 years experience of sales, facilitation, executive coaching, and has worked with organizations around the world. He is a well-known consultant. He holds a BSc in Managerial and Administrative Studies from Aston University in Birmingham. He is a coach supervisor. He is an ICF accredited coach, an NLP practitioner, Insights accredited, and loves personal and leadership development. Now, I'm very fortunate to work with Don, Mark, and rest of our team, Carl Sanders Edwards, Tim Winston, amongst others, right? We truly believe in helping people be better, right? And thank you, Don. Thank you, Mark, for joining us at 12:30 in the night. Looking forward to this session.
Thank you, Darshan. See, it is not a glorification. It is the experience you carry. An experience of working in different parts of the world. And that's why I said, okay, we will take back seat and give little, but I have to announce 2. We have Mr. Gyasuddin Khandakar from Bangladesh. Gurvinder, can you make him online, because he is the
Yes, sir.
president of Institute of Personal Management of Bangladesh, the counter, it's a national body of HR. Okay, he has joined from Bangladesh. So can you make him live, please? One
Yes,
minute.
sir.
Because we are working with the or national organization of both the country. Bangladesh, we have yesterday a webinar with the participation of Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, the Federation of HR organization.
I also
Mr. Ghayasuddin, welcome.
Yeah, Ghayasuddin sir, welcome.
You can unmute yourself. You are mute.
Yeah.
And we congratulate you and welcome on our webinar.
Yeah.
We have been deliberating. Okay, I think there is some issue. So, yes. Thank you very much.
Yes.
So, because our topic is very relevant to the present time, as I said, and we have two experts who has wide and varied experience of consulting and researching. Would you like to say something, sir, about from Bangladesh?
I'm Ghayasuddin,
Yes,
Khandakar
sir.
Ghayasuddin. Are you listening?
Yeah. Tell me, Ghayasuddin ji.
I am president of Bangladesh Institute of Personnel Management. And in fact, due to the COVID-19, we are in big problem for the time being. Basically, we have kept our institute closed at the moment
Okay,
because most of the students has left for home. Who come from various districts, and Dhaka is the most infected city. So these boys don't want to come back to the classes. So in fact, we are just idling our time, and we are thinking what to do about.
No, you will have lot of input from two experts. So thank you very much for joining. I also welcome others who are joining from Bangladesh. Because of paucity of time, I have taken you as a representative of Bangladesh, being the president of IPM.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So over to you, Mr.
Thank you,
Don.
sir.
Yeah.
Floor is open.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
We have Dr. Natraj.
Natraj. Good evening. Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear past president of Emeritus, chairman and secretary of the chapters, and other friends. We welcome all of them in this webinar being conducted by ISTD National Office and the instrumental of our past president and our own dear Dr. Y.K. Upadhyay, Yogesh Kumar Upadhyay. Thank you, Upadhyay ji, for organizing this international webinar on behalf of National Office. And this is also for Bangladesh and other across the globe. Many foreigners has joined today's program. Mr. Mark and also Mr. Darshan, on behalf of ISTD National Office as the National President, we welcome you for this webinar. Thank you, Darshan ji and others, for this wonderful webinar, which you are one of the part of the instrumental part of the to organization this. Now, today's topic is a fit future or future fit. Yes, after COVID pandemic and then uncertain and turbulent time, we feel that how to connect our members or connect our others HR fraternity across the globe or across the country. So we have started the webinar. As on date, I am proud on behalf of ISTD that more than 60-65 webinar has done last 3 months, and every day we are going to 2-3 webinars in the national office and each and every chapter. I am grateful all the chapter chairman, chapter secretary and RBPs for doing this program. Today's program is Future Fit. This is a program which is very relevant from today's scenario at the post-COVID and pre-COVID, what COVID is going on. So what is our organization? The organization must be lean, because no organization may not be the fat organization. So organization should be lean and very strategically manage the organization. So we have to manage the organization, because I am working in a manufacturing organization which is based in US based organization. I know that how to do the production and productivity in this 30-35% of employee in the organization. We are maintaining the social distancing. We are maintaining the all kinds of PR and relation to the every department as a human management department or HRD department. I have to change the organization policy to how to do this organization profitability without termination, without sacking the employee, how to run the organization profitability. And that is the today's main topic, fit for future or future for fit. Today we have all other members who have participated in this program. I thank all the members, National Council members, Diploma members, and Life members who have participated. They will learn how to run the organization, how to run the manufacturing organization, how to run the service sector in this pandemic season or in this pandemic and uncertain and volatile market. I hope everyone will enjoy this panel discussion. Thank you once again to our members and participants, past president and president of Emeritus, and also our current today's program, Jugesh ji. Thank you very much for your wonderful program arranged by today on behalf of National Office.
Thank you, Mr.
ISTD NSQ staff.
We will take vote of thank from Mr.
NSQ
Joshi, Dr.
team for this webinar, and thank you once again everyone for this wonderful session. And my heartfelt thanks to Jugesh Upadhyay for organizing this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Over
very
to
much.
Jugesh ji.
Actually,
Over to
I'm
Jugesh
seeing
ji.
I'm seeing the list of people from all over India have joined. We have Dr. Christina from Mysore. She has joined just now. Because we are feeling whole nation is with us today. So without going for investing time of others and mine, I'll invite Mr. Don and Mr. Mark to take it forward from now.
Thank you, Dr. Yogesh, and I will start by saying namaste. It's actually a privilege and an honor for Mark and myself and Darshan to be connecting into such knowledgeable and passionate people who want to make a difference for not only themselves, their families, their communities that they live in, but the world. And you know, I was reflecting as the introductions were happening there, and that's the gift of what we are doing today, is that we're all coming together, uniting from around the world that we can all contribute and make a difference and support each other through a period of time that's unplanned, uncertain, but most importantly, that we can connect, support, and care for each other. So thank you for this opportunity to share some time with you today. It's a privilege. And I'll say, in New Zealand, we say kia ora, which is a Maori saying for welcome, hello. And it's exciting times that we want to be able to share some of the things that we've learnt through this pandemic, but also from other crises that we've been involved with. But I do so, we share our short thoughts today as ideas that you can take forward and start to apply in your own environment. So whilst we're sharing some things, we want you to think, how does this apply for me and how do I adapt it for my environment? I'm also very, very mindful that whilst in New Zealand we have transitioned through the pandemic a little bit, we are very mindful and understanding of your current situation in your area of the world. And we care for you. We're thinking of you all as you still grapple with this pandemic. And hopefully today you'll get a sense that we are here and we are with you. And that's why we wanted to give you the gift today of sharing some insights and hopefully helping you in some way. So kia ora. So everyone can see my screen?
Yeah, everybody is mute. So I'm saying thank you on their behalf. Thank you very much.
So just a thumbs up that you can see my screen. Just make sure that everyone.
Yes,
awesome, thank you. So just a quick intro of who JumpShift and Adeption are. So Darshan's already introduced us, but we have a team of around 35 people, passionate people who want to make a difference. We all live on this blue dot, this thing called the Earth. And we have 35 people who believe in making a difference for people in the Earth, in the world. And our mission is to touch 1 million leaders around the world. If we can help 1 million leaders just be better in some way, in either their professional careers, their personal lives, or the communities that they live or serve among, we'll actually be able to influence 1 billion people. Because as we help people be better, they will then take that out to others. Hence what we are sharing with you today, that we can make a difference together and save this blue dot and make it better for us all. So that's our mission and our vision. I'm Don McVeigh, Director of JumpShift. Just a quick intro from you, Mark.
Yeah, so hello everyone, welcome. And I was involved with JumpShift when they first launched back in 2010 as their customer, working for the largest dairy exporter in the world at that time, and got to personally experience the difference in the partnership that Don talked about, the care, the support, and the behavior change that was created for many, many frontline leaders across that organization. And in a past life, I worked as part of IBM's sales transformation team and got to experience firsthand the way that JumpShift partners with their customers in a really meaningful way. So I'm hoping to bring to life some of the insights that we've got around how to engage customers through this pandemic and beyond in a way that's really supportive. So back over to you, Don.
Thanks, Mark. So just a few little housekeeping points to cover through the session. We're going to lead this session today is you're going to do some reflection for yourself. So you're going to get a better understanding about your current environment and some actions that you can take moving forward, because we're about behavior change. So we want you to really identify things and some tweaks and changes that you can make. So it's going to be interactive. You'll need to have a notes pad or use your computer to take some notes, because you're going to be answering some questions. Yes, we're going to make you do a little bit of work through the session, but right throughout the session, there's a chance to add thoughts and questions via the chat. We will have people be able to answer those during the session, but more importantly, we'll make sure we follow up after the session. So that's a little bit of housekeeping. So the first thing I just wanted to share is that we have a lot of expertise and experience in business improvement and running organizations around the world, as you know, some of the things that were shared earlier around our backgrounds. Out of key principles and methodologies like Lean, Six Sigma, theory of constraints, all of the methodologies are that focus on us being better and improving and focus on driving for continuous improvement. We identified about 13, 14 years ago that there was 3 underlying principles. Now, these things can support you in anything in life, not just in development, but in life. The first one is that sometimes we need to slow down to go faster. And in this context, we're able to pause and really reflect and understand what our current situation is, i.e., what is it that we're trying to achieve now? What is the problem we're trying to solve? What is the opportunity that we're trying to realize? We call this the diagnose phase. Just get really clear about what's actually happening for us and what we are trying to achieve. So this is a key point for us to be really clear on, especially in this current environment where there's uncertainty, because we can try and do too many things. We need to be clear and narrow down to the most relevant and important things for us to focus on. We also really want to understand what are some things we're already doing that are working. There's some things you're already doing that are effective, supporting you to get through it with your family, within your communities, your businesses, supporting your customers. Reflect on what's working. Show yourself some gratitude about some things you're already doing well. But you really need to reflect and understand your key challenges as well, because it's not until you pause and actually really understand your challenges that you can choose to take an action to mitigate and move forward with those challenges. So this is the diagnose phase. We get clear about stuff. When we are a little bit clearer about things, we're then able to get some inspiration and ideas, and that's the inspire. This is where, being clear around our focus, we can now choose and pull the right tools, ideas, principles, methodologies that will support us in our focus area. So it really helps us target and get the right ideas to help us. That means it's meaningful and relevant for us right now. You know, in our learning environments, as you know, I'm talking to experts here. You're all experts in helping people develop and thinking differently and growing. You know, we can always get more content and more material, but what's the right content and material? So we make sure it's targeted and it's effective. But of course, it means nothing unless you get out there and take an action. We know that we grow and develop and vertically as adults when we actually take action and try things. You know, if you want to be a great tennis player, you can watch 100 videos, you can get a little bit of coaching, but until you hit the tennis ball, you're never going to know how effective you are and what your strength is, i.e. maybe a forehand, and that weakness, that little backhand. So You learn that by hitting the tennis ball on the court. So you've got to get out on the court and hit the tennis ball. Just identifying some things to do and doing nothing with it, we call that the knowing and doing gap. You're not changing, you're not evolving. So hopefully today we're going to prime you with some ideas and things that you must go and try a few of them, make a few tweaks and experiment. And it's okay to fail, you know, it's okay to fail. Don't be hard on yourself. If you're trying things, you will fail. That means you're learning. Okay, so now we're going to get into it. So this is the part where you have to do some work. So we're going to jump straight in and we're going to actually do a little bit of diagnose, and I want you to really get a better understanding of your current environment. So you need to grab a pen and a paper or your computer, and I want you to answer these questions. Think of your own environment right now, whether that's relating to your work, your customers, the people that you influence, you coach, you support, your home. Okay, so I really want you to think about those things. So the first question is, what do you see as a clear focus area moving forward in the next 3 to 6 months? Really be clear about what you see as your clear focus area moving forward in the next 3 to 6 months. What is success for you in terms of a goal and a focus area in the next 3 to 6 months? Write it down.
Your audience can write in chat box. Question is, what do you see as the clear focus area moving forward in the next 3 to 6 months?
Okay, so this is your...
I would say health.
Yep, so write it down. Do your individual thinking. Make sure that we're getting a chance to think ourselves what's relevant and important for each of you. Make sure it's individual thinking. So that's your goal, that's your focus area. The next question, I now want you to reflect, during the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown, what have you learned the most about yourself? And what supported you in managing through the constant change? So individual reflection, during the COVID lockdown and pandemic, what have you learned the most about yourself? And what supported you? Write it down, capture it. What have you learnt the most about yourself? What supported you in managing through the changing environment? Okay, question 3. I now want you to think about the current challenges, the things that are currently hindering you. Now, there could potentially be a lot of things. I really want you to really focus down and think, what are the top 2 challenges that you're still facing today? Those things that are really hindering you, those things that keep you awake at night. I want you to write them down. What are your current top 2 challenges that are hindering you that you're still facing today? Capture them. Okay. What we've given you in these 3 questions is the gift of reflection. Now, we know if we take a moment to pause, slow down, and get a better sense of what's actually happening for us right now, we're in a much better position to make informed decisions, take the right actions, and actually go faster and accelerate what we're doing. We know there's a 23% uplift in our effectiveness if we just pause and reflect for 5 minutes every day. That was 3 minutes of reflection, and it's just simple questions that really make you understand what's really important to me, my focus areas. What are some things that I know are working and I should be actually giving myself some gratitude and acknowledgement for, because these are the things I'm learning about myself. But I've got to be really aware of those challenges, those things that are hindering me. So now that you've understood those, I now want you to review what you've just captured there in terms of those reflections. And I now want you to write down under the word action. I want you to write the word action. And I now want you to write down what's a small tweak or step that you can take moving forward, having reflected on your current environment, either towards that goal, enhancing the things that you've learned about yourself and what's worked, or getting some momentum towards that challenge. So just 2 minutes, write down an action you can take, a small tweak to get some momentum to become future fit. Write it down, 2 minutes, small action. Now I'll get you to just chuck these actions or small tweaks into the chat, because we can all learn from each other. What we create in Jump Shift and Adeption is what we call a community of learners, where we're actually able to learn and take ideas from each other, just like we're doing today. You know, we're actually supporting each other. We've all got different experiences. We've made mistakes. Gee, I'd hate to forget. I'd hate to remember how many mistakes I've made, you know, but we've learned. So that's the richness of actually bouncing ideas off each other. So chuck that small little tweak or action, and we'll be able to capture those and in some way consolidate some of them later on. So hopefully that pausing to slow down, this gift that you've just had, is one that's going to help you move forward. And hopefully, remember, it means nothing unless you take that action. So you've got to get on the tennis court and hit the ball with this action, right? So make it happen. Really, really important. So that's the first part of our session today, which is diagnose. We've helped you think about and get a clearer understanding about your current environment. So I'm just going to hand over to Mark now, who's going to transition and start thinking about now some ideas that we could use moving forward. So over to you, Mark.
Great, thanks, Don. So this next piece is really bringing in the lens of sales and marketing to your organization, and what's the appropriate response to what's happening in the world and in your marketplace, informed by macro economists. So there's a couple of people in the UK that were referencing the next 18 months and looking at what some of the key trends are that are coming up. So if you move on to the next slide, Don, we can just look at some of the elements of this. So they describe the macroeconomy as having an L-shaped recession. And literally L-shaped because it's dropped and been impacted in all of our markets in terms of revenue and profit. And then that's going to run for a period of at least 18 months. Now, the first phase of that is the crisis phase, and we've got a double whammy impact of that. Where we talked at the start of every century, there's a pandemic of this size. So the two impacts that we're feeling are, one, a personal impact, the impact of COVID, and our sense of concern for our friends, our family, and our communities. And that's creating a threat response in many of us as we're in lockdown. The second part is that our businesses are also being impacted. So those two things are playing on our minds as leaders. And as people that are out there working with our customers, we need to be really cognizant of that first phase, that people in crisis mode can't take new inputs right now. The next phase is recovery. So as we move through the pandemic and out through the lockdown, we move into a new normal, a recovery phase. Slow routes, you know, effectively the first signs of new life in the marketplace. So that recovery starts to happen. And then it evolves into the new phase. So again, Don, if you can move on. Final step. So there's 3 horizons. This first crisis phase, it's key as leaders, facilitators, and anyone in a HR support role for organizations to stabilize the business. We then need to look at evolving, pivoting so that we can thrive as the economy recovers. And then the final phase that we're setting ourselves up for is becoming future fit. And that's a growth phase, anticipated 10-year growth cycle that kicks in from the end of next year. But we can't maximize and leverage the opportunity for that growth phase unless we stay in business, stabilize, evolve and pivot what we're doing in order to be ready for the market. So post-pandemic, although it may be easing, we're actually in an opportunity now to practice some things, as Don said, and take some meaningful actions. So again, if we can move on to some of the key responses and approaches. So from a brand marketing and sales lens, it's really important right now that you secure your key customers, the ones that you're partnering with really closely, and do not sell during this time. Engage, but do not sell. People do not have the mindset to be purchasing and buying right now unless they're a current client or customer that's been working with you and you've already got a very strong relationship. Now is a time to position a purposeful brand. Consider how you engage and meaningfully connect with your customers to add value. And this is really mindful now around considering the art of giving and practicing gratitude for yourselves and for your customers, and just paying it forward. Know that in 12 to 18 months' time, these are the customers that will come back and continue to engage in your services if you've looked after their real needs and what they're looking for right now. So as you're making a difference and connecting with your customers, it's a great time to understand the market needs. What's changing in terms of the pain points for your customers? What are the things that are important and relevant for them? Because that will help inform your innovation, your pivoting, because we're pivoting now not for what it used to be like, we're pivoting for a new normal. So what are our customers going to be expecting from us in 6 to 12 months? That's what we need to get business ready for. And the final key element here is there's no point waiting until you have the perfect solution, because the world is constantly iterating and changing. And so our response mechanism needs to be to create good enough, to experiment, and to be learning with our customers through that process. In terminology, agile is the way to do it. Iterative sprints. Try something, get feedback from your customers. Make sure that it's really making a difference. So having shared those phases, the L-shaped recession and the macro economy, and some of those key timelines, just have a reflect. The key question now is, what are some key milestones that you want to think about, and some approaches with your customers that are most important and relevant for your organization? So just make a note for yourself. What are those key milestones, key steps and actions you can take that are most important and relevant for your customers based on this visual of the timelines? Just a couple of minutes to capture those thoughts for yourself. So that's brought in the lens of our customers, and our customers really support us. But our number one customers through this time are our people at home, our families, as well as our people at work. And so although this is the marketing lens, when the stabilization happens, it's more of an internal focus around how do we manage ourselves and our people through this crisis. And Don led the crisis response for our largest employer in New Zealand. We'll be bringing a number of those elements to bear in this next piece. Back over to you, Don.
Thanks, Mark. And just as I transition into the next slide, just remember that you're able to ask questions. As we can through the session, Mark will continue to answer questions as we go through the remainder of the inspiration. If we can't, we'll answer them later on. So awesome reflection about this period of time, but we have to be really cognizant that, you know, crises in the context of the name itself means that it was unplanned, right? It's hit us, and it's hit us suddenly. So there's actually horizons that we need to think about and phases that we need to frame ourselves in terms of our thinking, but more importantly, in our ability to respond to a crisis. So the very first one is what Mark touched on, is that we need to stabilize. And in essence, it's survival here. You know, in the first phase of any crisis, it's about survival. So in the context of survival, we need to take proactive steps to stabilize our business. We have to stabilize our environment, i.e. our family life. We have to stabilize our communities. And at the moment, we need to stabilize the globe, the world. As a human race, we need to stabilize together, which is the gift of connecting with you today. So one of the things that's really important in the stabilize and survival stage is get really clear about what your objectives are. You know, for example, it might be, you know, the most meaningful and important objectives for us in terms of survival is maybe our people, number one. Maybe it's our business continuity, our ability to still deliver a service or a product or an offering. Or maybe it's around our brand or our market, you know, whatever it is. So be clear about your objectives. What are you focusing on? Otherwise, you'll end up trying to do 10 things and you'll fail and you won't survive. So get clear on those focus areas. The second lens to think about in the stabilize phase is actually really understanding the difference between having the ability to become aware and then react and respond to your operational or tactical issues, the things that are preventing you from still operating. So we call this like in the business activity. So you need to have some people, i.e. the people who do the work are the most experienced people with the knowledge, to focus on what are our current challenges that are preventing us from operating effectively that could lead to us disappearing. So they're focusing on in the business. The second lens that you need to think about is that you need some people, and normally maybe your senior leadership group or your advisors, who are thinking around the strategic implications of the crisis. The moving from today to 3 months, and as Mark showed us the horizons that we talked about on the timeline, that's 6 months out. What are the implications? What is going to be different for us? What customers could we be in danger of losing? How do we now understand and pivot? What does success look like for us in 3 years in that 10-year growth cycle? So they're thinking on the business. You need to separate those two, because we know from our experiences in managing crises that if you get those two mixed up, you end up getting swamped and the tactical actions don't happen and the businesses fall over. So separate tactical versus strategic thinking and actions. Something really important. You know, identify clear owners. You know, make sure you've got people who own tactical elements, strategic elements, work streams within each. Engage with customers. And as Mark said, you know, in the stabilize and survival period, it's not about going out there and pushing your product, your service, or your offering. It's actually about showing empathy, actually letting your customers know that you are there to walk beside them through this period. It's so much uncertainty. You know, if we think about our VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complexity, and ambiguity, that's all happening for us right now. We have to go through this together. So connect, show empathy, and just walk beside your customers and your stakeholders, you know, those partners, the network. That's the beauty of this session here. So stabilize and survive. That's the most important phase. You know, this can last anywhere between, you know, 1 to 6 months, and it varies by organization and individuals, right? The second key phase is what we call, you know, the importance of evolving and thriving. Now in here, we want to actually make sure that we're starting to think about that new environment. The strategic thinkers are starting to bring some thoughts down while we're still managing our operations but we're still maintaining a focus on the most important objectives. We evolve our work streams to increase the scope now. So we broaden our range, but we always still maintain the focus on our customers. We're now walking beside them and we're starting to experiment, try things with them. So we're innovating a bit. Look for partnerships and alliances. This is something that we've really seen in New Zealand. So, you know, we have a service business in New Zealand where we offer development programs. We've seen a lot of our competitors go out of business, but we've also seen a lot of our competitors actually combine, you know, and start working together more effectively, as we have. You know, we work with a lot of our competitors as well. We want to make a difference to 1 million people in the world. We can't do it on our own. So we align, you know, we're okay to work with our competitors. So think about partnerships. Who can I buddy up with and start to learn from and start to do some amazing stuff together, creating maybe new opportunities for you. That's that new business models and structures that you can start to create and learn from. So this is the evolve and thrive phase. This is now we're transitioning out and starting to get more momentum. The third phase is around becoming future fit. So as Mark said, you know, this period here can last and needs to be able to last and think for a 10-year growth cycle. We know from, as Dr. Yogesh talked about, you know, this happens every century. It's not an immediate response and everything goes back to normal. It's a long journey here. You know, you're running a marathon, you're not doing 100 meters. So how do we start to become future fit? How do we start to get the right people supporting us, either internally, our own people, or externally, stakeholders and partners? How do we empower our people to own this moving forward and be part of this journey as we become future fit? Continue to innovate. Don't stop innovating. Review and adjust your business plans. You have to think differently. Your strategic plans will change. Your priorities will change. Maybe your vision might pivot. You know, this is the opportunity. You know, we think about in India, let's be vocal about local. How do we promote the local economy? More importantly, how do we really bring to life the caring, the collective support and ability to do this together? Because you're not going to do it alone, you know, we know that. So these are three important phases that we know are really important in managing crises. I've managed crises in New Zealand for New Zealand's biggest company and was part of the formation of the crisis response that the New Zealand government's used to manage this crisis. We made mistakes, we learnt, we pivoted, we changed, and we developed an effective crisis response plan. These are the three phases that we had to think through. So have a look here. Just think about maybe some things that you're already doing well, or maybe a gap. In any of the phases, just have a look through and just think about what some things that I'm already doing, which are going well for me, which I need to acknowledge and understand and make better. What's the gap? What are some things that are missing? So just 1 minute, capture anything that an insight you've taken from understanding the three phases of crisis management. Make a note. So having understood from, first of all, from Mark, you know, the timelines, that 3 months, we're kind of maybe in the stabilized phase, the 6 month period where we're kind of evolving and thriving, but that longer, you know, 15-month period where we're starting to become more future fit, and then in that 10-year growth cycle. What we know happens is that at any point in time, all of these phases can actually overlap each other. So they're not like linear where, we've moved from our survival phase and it's now clear that we're now in the evolve and thrive. In organizations, we're actually starting to get this, there's a lot of things happening that I'm not quite sure where we are. So we know the research shows this, yeah. So what we know is that in the initial stages of a crisis, obviously that horizon thinking is focused. That's why you can see here, it's up high, right? So our mind space, our thinking is around that survival. And that goes through a period. So if you think like a bell curve, you know, there's a lot of focus, and then it starts to diminish a little bit because we're now survived and we're starting to think, oh, we're getting through this, you know. And then what starts to increase now in terms of our thinking space is Horizon 2, that evolve and thrive. Now you'll see there's an intersection point here. This creates confusion. And if we're not reflective and understand about, oh, what does this mean for us in our organizations or for our customers, then this can actually mean that we lose sight of our focus or objectives. So this intersection is really important to understand and acknowledge. And it may be that some of your people, some in your businesses, some of your customers, they'll have people who are still thinking that we're in survival mode when the rest of the business might be starting to evolve and thrive. This creates confusion. So this happens here. It also happens with Horizon 3. So some people will be accelerating their thinking around that becoming future fit. So they, in their minds, they have like, oh, we've survived. Yep, we're still here. Actually, I'm thinking about 3 years out from now, and I'm starting to think about that. Now, unless you acknowledge and become cognizant of what this means for your business, for your customers, for your sales plan, for your future fit focus, it'll become very confusing. So what I'd like you to do now is just take a moment and think about, where is your current mind space and thinking focused now? Do you think you're in Horizon 1 in that survival mode and thinking? Do you think that you're already in the thriving and evolving phase? Or have you already transitioned to becoming future fit? So just take a moment to reflect, where is a lot of your mind, your thinking space focused now? And when is the time for you to start thinking about shifting in terms of that timeline? Just capture some thoughts. Where are you now? When do you think's the time for you to move and pivot? Once again, really important to understand your own environment. Be cognizant of this as you are all practitioners and you're helping others, you know, businesses, individuals through coaching and guidance programs, etc. Help your companies that you're working with, the people that you're working with, be aware of this. Ask them these questions because it really helps them get clear, and it explains some of the confusion that's currently being felt around the world. Great questions to ask the people that you support. Okay, so that's the research that we know what happens in a crisis, these intersection points in this, oh, where are we at? How do we plan to think about moving forward in these horizons? So that's how we think about crises. Now we know research always shows us that there's 2 ways that we can actually come out of a crisis. One is that we can have what we call post-traumatic stress, where it becomes overwhelming. Within our business, we become constrained. We start to lose that energy, that excitement, the innovation, it's diminished, and we start to just close up a little bit, you know. We do that at home in our current pressure and environment, right? So this stress is one that's created through our own thinking. Now, what we do have the ability to do is come out of situations that have been forced upon us with what we call post-traumatic growth. And all it is, it's just a reframing of our thinking. We're not dismissing the impacts or the situation that we're in. All we're thinking about is understanding at a deeper level what's actually happening for us. And through reflection, choosing a pathway forward. And in doing so, we're actually now positively thinking about growth rather than being inward and becoming withdrawn and letting stress take over through our limbic thought process. So really important that we know research shows us that we can actually do this. So here's some things that we need to think about in terms of our ability to come out, to manage through and come out of a crisis in what we call post-traumatic growth. So that first part, that survival bit, is actually just like weathering the storm. There's a big storm that's hit us. So how do we manage, survive, and stay healthy through this period? So these are some things that we need to do in the red there. You know, these are some things that we need to be thinking about. You know, expressing emotions helps us move to a growth mindset rather than a stressful mindset. Rather than holding it within, share it, talk to each other. So these are some things to think about in the red that we need to be doing. There's some traps that we know you'll fall into. Yeah, that sense of, oh, she'll be right. It's just another change. It'll pass. We'll be okay. Or, you know, we can just keep doing what we've always done and we'll be okay. Unfortunately, that's not right. So those are some traps to think about. The next phase that we talked about was this evolve and thrive phase. This is where we're kind of regrouping and reassessing our current landscape and what we want to try and pivot and experiment with. So here's some things that you need to be thinking about in terms of that growth mindset and that post-traumatic growth. You know, look for casualties, look for your people who are, you think, are struggling and maybe inwardly putting more pressure or stress on themselves. So how do we help? How do we become more evident? How do we look and see these people? How do we look for this in our customers, in our channel partners? Be aware. This is the caring and working together piece, right? When we are actively looking outward to support others, we are actually in a growth mindset phase, and it makes us feel better, and it re-energizes us and stimulates us. So these are some things. Acknowledge the grief. You know, don't ignore it. We have to really actually just understand and acknowledge the things that we are losing, the things that are impacting us. It's really important. Choose that new priorities and that new purpose. Think about your personal why and the things, the difference you can make for an individual, a family, a community, a business. You know, that blue dot. What's the dent I can make in the blue dot through this period? That little contribution I can make to helping one person. That purposeful thing. And you know, this is where you might decide some new direction. We've seen this a lot in New Zealand. A lot of people are changing careers through this period. It's that growth mindset which is triggered, right? But here's some traps to watch out for. You know, we end up focusing on tasks, not people. Focus on people first, yourself, others around you. Don't try to replicate what you always have done. So products, services, information that you provide others, don't just think you're just going to create a new version of that. Where's the innovation? Where's the real pivots? So those are some traps. The third one is that becoming future fit. This is where we're doing new things. We're growing, we're learning, we're experimenting. Really, really important that we start to look and understand this a bit better. So here's some things again in the green here. You know, be cognizant of what's working. If it's working, do more of it, accelerate it. You know, continue to do the things that you're good at. What's your niche? What's that thing that you know is landing? Make sure you're focusing on the things you know you are good at. Double down on successes. Learn and spread the lessons. Teach others. You know, this is what inspires us. Gives us a sense of creating a legacy that'll be remembered in history. Imagine that we collectively together, the ISTD and adaption and jump shifts, we made a difference that actually started to transition the way people think. Wouldn't that be great? And they wrote a white paper about it. Now there's a goal for us all, right? So, you know, this is the difference in thinking. So here's some traps. You know, we make mistakes in that evolve and thrive, and we continue to do it rather than actually going, hey, I'm going to stop doing this now because it's not working. We just continue to do the same thing. That definition of insanity, doing the same thing every day but expecting a different result. Well, don't do that. So what I want you to do now is just take 1 minute, and I now want you to think about what's currently going on for you. You know, if you are feeling stressed, how can you reframe your thinking to have post-traumatic growth? Look at some of these things in the red, the blue, and the green and go, what am I doing well that I continue? Or what's the gap for that? Which of these traps are you falling into? So make a quick note. How do you get post-traumatic growth versus post-traumatic stress? And just to let you know, we will send out the slide deck post the session as well. So you'll get that in the follow-up note. So you'll have this information. Okay, so this is, interestingly, you know, in New Zealand, we've experienced all of these things that we're sharing. You know, we shared this months ago around the world, and we're seeing and feeling this stuff right now, and it's playing out exactly as this stuff is here. So these are the things you're going to feel, see, and now that we've primed you around it, you're going to see it earlier, yeah, because you're looking for these things, and you'll go, hey, that's that thing we talked about, and that's it, right? You know, so we're priming your brain to be aware of it, which means you'll see and feel it earlier. That means you can make a choice and act sooner. So hopefully this will help you. So this is the phases that we know we're going through, and here's how we can start to deal with it. Now, unfortunately, research always shows us that as humans, we have a trait that's in all of us. And that's how we love normalcy. We love normality in our lives. It gives us a sense of being in control. It gives us a sense of actually, oh, we're okay. Now, normalcy bias is something that we all have. So this is a picture here of Bondi Beach in Sydney, which was taken in the middle of the lockdown. Now, even though the people in Australia, like New Zealand, like America, and like areas of India, there's been an instruction that you do not go outside. The very first fine Saturday in the middle of a lockdown, that's a picture taken of the beach. So what happens is that when the weather's fine and it's the weekend, I always go to the beach. So I'm just going to go to the beach. No thought process around what's the implications for me, for others. You know, how do I care for my community? How do we work together? And in New Zealand, we're really, really proud to say that we had a team of 5 million people that were working together. So this was minimized in New Zealand, but people have this normalcy bias. They will always revert back to what they've always done. Yeah. And it's so, you know, the minute that in England, they said, right, we're coming out of lockdown, that 11,000 people go to a beach. Well, in the middle of a pandemic, the virus didn't stop at 12 o'clock that night. It's still actually active and around, you know, and we created the situation for it to spread again by having 11,000 people together. So normalcy bias impacts us. So here's some things I need you to think about relating to this research. So you all have this. Your people will have this. Your customers will have a sense of this. We have a belief that things will revert back to normal. But I can assure you that things will not always revert back to normal. There's going to be some long-lasting implications. And as Mark said, 10 years, we know from research, 10 years, that, you know, if you think about the global travel industry and the ability to travel around the world, that sector is not going to be back to any sense of normalcy for at least another 3 years. The freedom, the ability to travel, the price, the cost, you know, it's just not going to be there for 3 years. I've worked in the sector, and it's just not going to happen, right? So people's lives are going to change. The normalcy around our personal lives are going to change and be impacted for quite a period of time. So it's not just work, it's actually life. So here's some things we need to think about. You know, people's roles will change in their work. People's ability to do the things that they're passionate about, their purpose, will change, and it will shock them. They will go into a sense of shock. Even though it's been talked about and communicated, they're still going to be shocked. So here's some things you need to think about in terms of being able to support yourself and the people that you influence, support, and your families, children. This is a key thing to do with children. We need to overcorrect for this bias. So it's a couple of simple techniques here is that we think about some things that will be different. You know, that acknowledging and grieving for things that are changing. This is this part. Think about and acknowledge some things that will be different for us. What is going to change in our personal lives? What will remain post the pandemic as we come out of this? What will be different? And acknowledge them and talk about them. We know that by doing this, we're starting to overcome this normalcy bias. Get your children to really share these things. Ask them questions so that they have to think about these things and then talk about it. Because we know that those doing the thinking and the talking are actually learning. Don't just tell them stuff because it's just going in one ear and out the other. We need them to have cognitive thought so it really resonates with them and they start to understand it and it overcomes this bias. To think about the second thing is actually, you know, in a time of change, any change, it always feels like a massive divide. You know, we're kind of here now in this changing environment means we've got this massive divide and gap. And the world's going to be different and our environment's going to be different. You know, it feels enormous. So what we are able to do is actually really be aware of some things that probably won't change. There's some aspects in our personal lives that aren't going to change or be different. There's some aspects in our businesses, in our work, that's still going to be remaining. Understand those things and talk about them. What this does, and this is no different than leading change, it gives people some sense of stability. Oh, not everything's going to change. I will have some things that I can continue to do. We will still be able to do things that we've done in our personal lives. Not everything, but some things will still be there. So what this does is it helps close. I'm trying to get my hands right as I had them before now. You know, we're here and that big gap, it actually, we bridge the gap a bit. It makes it feel a little bit easier to close that gap. It gives a sense of stability that not everything's going to change. So this is normalcy bias. What I want you to do now is just reflect about what are you thinking will actually revert back to normal right now? So where is the normalcy bias playing out for you? What are you thinking that, oh, it'll revert back to how it was, or my customers will still want to do this, or my clients will still want to be acting in this way? Where are you demonstrating and thinking normalcy bias? Make a note. The second thing is, you know, start to think about writing down some things that will be different for you, both in your professional career and your personal life. What are some things that are going to be different, at least for a period of time, if not ever? And start to acknowledge and talk about those things. But be clear about those things that are actually still going to be remaining for you. Giving you a sense of some stability, minimizing that impact of change. So just 30 seconds. What does this mean for you? Remember, this is as much in our personal lives, our home environments, our communities as it is at work. So two lenses, your business, your professional career, but your personal life as well. Okay, so we're just going to move through now. Now we know that most of you on this call, you're all, you know, practitioners that want to make a difference for people. You want to influence, coach, support people to be better, and it's what energizes. It's your purpose. It's your why, and the focus is always outward. Yeah. I really want you to be really cognizant that to be that best influencer, that best coach, that person that has a real impact and changes people's lives, the very first step is that you need to actually look inward first. To be the most effective person outwardly and supporting others and making an impact, you have to be the best you. So what we call this is self-care. So you have to focus on yourself first. So you need to be the best you. If you get on an aircraft, every airline in the world has the same safety instruction. In the case of an emergency, the oxygen mask will drop down from the luggage area above. Please put the oxygen mask on yourself before you support others. Well, guess what? It's no different right now in life. It's no different right now as you lead and influence others. If you don't care for yourself, you'll never be able to be the person, the influencer, the father, the mother, the supporting partner, husband, wife that you could be. So self-care is really important. And here's 7 pillars that we know are really, really important. And a lot of them are really relevant in this pandemic. Just keep on my time. Okay, so, knowledge. So reflect on the things that you know work for you. Understand some things that give you energy, make you feel better. This is the reflection part, right? Understanding what works for you. You've probably stopped doing that in this current pandemic. So you need to be aware of what works for you and continue to do it. Mental well-being, do a check-in regularly about how am I feeling right now, every day. How am I feeling today? What mind space am I in? Am I stressed? How am I feeling? What can I do about this? Physical activity. Even in times of lockdown, we can do exercise. Exercise is not sitting down all day, it's standing up for half a day. It's moving, doing some little exercises on the floor. We need to be stimulating our bodies through movement. Eating healthily. When we're stuck at home, when we're in our current pandemic, it means that we have access to foods that we might not have had access to previously. So the temptations are there, and we need to avoid the risks of, eating the wrong foods, getting some things that we enjoy in life and overdoing some of those things. So avoid the risks that are now more prevalent for you. Good hygiene, so important with this pandemic. And then rational use of products and services. So how do you use the things that can support you? Your vitamins, the things that your natural foods, the things that give you energy. So this isn't a luxury that we're talking about here. This is a necessity. You need to be doing this stuff. You need to be doing these things. If you want to be the best person outward for your families, for your children, for the people that you influence and lead in the world, you've got to be doing this stuff for yourself. So how do you set yourself up to be successful? That's what this is about. So set up regular breaks. Give yourself a break. Don't beat yourself up. Complete regular check-ins. Just ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Focus on small steps, small little tweaks. When we say do physical activity, it doesn't mean you've got to go for a 2-hour run. That's just going to put more pressure on you. It just means just build in 5 windows of 5 minutes where you can stand up and stretch, go for a little walk out, around your room, whatever it might be, depending on your freedom that you have, maybe around the park or around your building. How can you get motivated? What motivates and inspires you? Think about those things and start doing them, because those are the things you've stopped doing in a crisis in this pandemic. Well-being, your sleep, exercise. So here's some things I want you to think about. Here's some questions that we ask as a team every day and as individuals. Have a look at those questions and maybe choose 1 or 2 of them that you could start applying yourself. Once again, I'll send this out as a follow-up, but you'll get it in the pack as a follow-up to the session. What are you grateful for today? That gratitude. Care for yourself. Who am I connecting in with? That normalcy bias. What are some expectations of normalcy that I'm going to let go today? It's okay for me to let that go. So what's the action you're going to commit to? Write that down right now. The thing you're going to do to help yourself and care for yourself. Jot that down. So we've shared some ideas there with you through this Inspire phase. Mark's talked about the importance of that, the timelines, the horizons that exist, you know, that three months of stabilizing, surviving, the 6 months of that evolving and thriving, the 15-month period of that becoming future fit, but the 10 years of growth. We've talked about the phases of the crisis response: survival first, evolving and thriving, and then becoming future fit. And the fact that they interact, and we can get confused around the phases because they're not linear, right? We've also talked about the importance of actually having that growth mindset, that post-traumatic growth rather than that post-traumatic stress, and things we can do to stimulate that for ourselves and for others. We've also thought about normalcy bias. Don't fall into the trap of thinking it's going to revert back to normal. How do we understand it more and own it? And then we've thought about the importance of caring for yourself. So what I want you to do now is I want you now, right now, to write down an action that you are going to take. Right now, write it down on a piece of paper, on your computer, the thing you're going to commit to doing. Because if you want to be a good tennis player, you've got to go and hit the ball. So what's the thing you're going to do? And then the second thing, I now want you to write down an insight that you've had from today, the thing that's made you go, oh, that's important and relevant to me. So take just 2 minutes, capture your action and your insight. So as you've done that, if you feel comfortable in sharing with others, remember, we can learn from each other, so we can take ideas from each other. So if you feel comfortable, just chuck the action and insight into the chat. So as we continue the session, you can be typing away, putting that in there. Sure, you can multitask. Chuck your action and insight into the chat because we can learn and steal ideas from each other. So just a couple of key things just to think about as we close this session. This is what people are feeling right now all around the world, even still in New Zealand. You know, we've been confined, we've been locked down in our home environments, our whole environments have changed. So there's a sense of stumbling. People are still stumbling through this. That stumbling is going to continue, right? This is unplanned for. There's no rules to follow here. We're learning every day. So stumbling is happening. There's confusion. So, you know, even, hey, am I working in a virtual environment, a remote working force? What are we doing? How long is this going to last for? The phases is creating confusion. That's really evident. It's really evident all around the world. So how do we understand and see this confusion earlier to respond? And, you know, this is a picture of the Tour de France. Now, in the Tour de France, in a cycling race, you'll get a breakaway group. A breakaway group is people who their thinking's evolved and they are actually more forward thinking than the rest of the business or the people. And it creates a separation, divergence. This is something that's starting to happen. People are thinking that we're coming out of this and we're already actually moved forward. And we're actually generating a bigger divide and gap. And our people aren't coming on the journey with us. So, you know, as influencers and leaders, we need to be really aware of this so we can make a choice about what we do. We either continue and create the divergence and separation, or we identify a way to bring our people up, or we go back, right? This analogy of the Tour de France is no different. You get a breakaway group, they're out there, they're battling away, they're going as hard as they can, they're performing, they're getting results, but they go, hey, can we survive out here? At the same time, the chase pack is now thinking, oh, should we chase? Who should chase? Is it the right thing to chase? Or do we just sit here where we're comfortable? So it's exactly the same, right? How we got to divide, what do we do about it? So these are the things that we know, and in New Zealand, we're kind of really in this part here. You know, we're getting the separation. Some have moved on, some haven't. So over to Mark now, who's just going to share a little couple bits of information around offerings we have, and then I'm going to hand over to Dr. Yogesh, who'll close the session.
Thank you, Don. Yes, and just great reflections through that, different ways of viewing to provoke that thinking and promote action. And three things that we engage with our clients in New Zealand and Asia Pacific on, based on feedback that we were getting from them in that first phase when we were stabilizing and then pivoting. We created a Navigating Your New Normal series of breakfast Zoom sessions for business leaders in New Zealand, bringing in panel experts. So I was their host. They were sharing responses to how do you lead through crisis? How do you move your mindset from reactive to creative? What are the 6 new normals that we're experiencing in lockdown, and how to evolve our mental health through that? So we've got all of those recordings saved in the Navigating Your New Normal LinkedIn group, and we're looking to make that available to you, and I've just popped the link into the chat. So for those that want to deep dive on specific topics, that's just free access to global experts on a 13-week series that we put on for free in New Zealand to support our clients. The second phase, and something that we're putting across Asia Pacific, is many of you will be now training in a virtual environment. The irony, of course, people talk about PowerPoint doesn't work and meetings don't work, but meetings still happen and PowerPoint still happens. Now, some of your students will be over virtual training, but that's probably because they've not experienced necessarily working in a virtual environment that's been effective. So this is the art of virtual facilitation. It does require pivoting and preparation in the way that you deliver it. And we've been doing virtual delivery with our global clients since back in 2012. And we're just sharing hints, tips, approaches, and getting you thinking through the DIY to leverage, if you're pivoting your business to virtual, how to do it and create that impact. And then finally, there's a number of clients in New Zealand that reached out to us directly and specifically to ask for help with their teams and with their leaders. How do they lead virtual teams? How do I look after my own resilience? How do I get in that executing now to stabilize the business? And so we created a snackables offering based on the pull from our customers that we just offer as 90-minute virtual or in-person sessions, depending on what stage of lockdown we're in. And many of our clients just tapped into those 60 to 90-minute sessions as like a booster shot to help with their focus, their strategy, and looking after their people. So for any of these things, if they're useful, you want to explore them further, our main man in India is Darshan, phenomenal guy. Connecting with Darshan, I'll just pop his details into the chat. And of course, because the virtual art of facilitation does kick off at 5:30 in the morning for India time, just to acknowledge anyone attending that early, there is a 20% discount if you quote ISTD to Darshan that we'll make available to you for your troubles of dialing in so early. And then you can feel our early morning fatigue. So that's me, Don. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us for the call. I hope it's been valuable and value add for you.
Thanks, Mark.
So thanks, Don. Thanks, Mr. Mark, for wonderful session. Since there was a question, what are the insights from the organization from this particular event? So I'm not going to sum up those for the convenience of my attendees, but I'll certainly say that you have given wonderful model: survival, evolve, and then future fit, and also 7 pillars of personal care, self-care. And these are the most important aspect in today's time. We have wonderful audience also. We have one President Emeritus of ISTD, Dr. Valraj Birmani. Gurvinderji, can you enable Birmani sir and Dr. Sunil Abrol and also Dr. Vanwat? And I have my personal very In India, we say Guru Devo Bhava. Teachers are the Guru, and I have 3 teachers. Dr. Reva Sharma, Joint Director, ATI J&K. Dr. Christina, she is from Women's Study, ATI from Mysore. And Dr. Dhapte, Director, ATI Pune, Maharashtra. So I have people from Bangladesh, Mr. Rashid, Mr. Siv, of course, somebody, they have left because of time and Eid coming. We are near to Eid. Virmani, sir? Sunil Abror, sir? Because I don't see any. Yes, sir. Sunil, sir, would you like to add anything? You can unmute yourself, please. Because our audience were quite engaged. Darshan, do you see any question in the chat box? I didn't find any question. Or anybody would like to, they can raise hand. We will make them. Yes, one.
I think we have a lot of good compliments and good thoughts coming.
Venvat साहब को तो कर दीजिए, Venvat साहब को भी ले लीजिए फ्रेम में.
कर दिया सर.
Yes, Venvat साहब. Venvat साहब, unmute yourself.
Good evening, everybody. I, in fact, love this session by Mark and Dawn, and I kept giving a few of my suggestions to Mark while he was talking, especially in the case of the push-pull strategies. When there is certainty around, then push strategy is fine. But when uncertainty is like the present endemic, which is there, the COVID-19, where things are so uncertain, that it is more of the pull strategy that works, and more in terms of short-term forecasting rather than long-term forecasts. I was a little bit amazed by, let's say, Mark, when I found a lot of the presentations that were there divided into 3, part 1, part 2, part 3. That seemed to be a new feature to me. In fact, I believe in the life cycle concept of GOD, birth to death, or from cradle to grave. So there are 3 stages of G being for generation, generating new, the maintenance part taken care by operations, that is our Lord Vishnu, and finishing off that cycle is D, which is Lord Shiva. So those 3 stages I found in a lot of your presentations, which are very impressive to me. There are many of these things that you're talking about, how fit a person is, or how fit an organization is, and should you take care of yourself first and then take care of others. Rightly, when you're on the plane and when there's a danger, you must seek the belt on first yourself so that you can then protect others. Now, the only thing is, I think what is important is that is more in terms of like all this pandemic remaining safe and sound, washing hands. It is more of building up on your own immunity, which is very important. So if you are, well, the creation is within you, the self-confidence, etc. So it is building on that strength, and that is why some of our people are practicing yoga to build up on that immunity. So I think you, rather than be dependent on the environment, can you be part of the environment and bring in concepts of resilience, agility, flexibility that we were talking about. And we know the younger you are, the more flexible you are. And the more leaner you are, the more flexible you are. So to get rid of the fat, especially at unwanted places, I think that is what will increase your own stamina, make you more fit, whether the product, good, service, or an organization. The new norms are there. We belong to that situation when we started off with the card punching. Today we are talking about cloud computing, additive manufacturing, etc. So I think what is important is all of us.
Venvat sir, thoda brief, please. We have other guys also.
I'm finishing. So I think it is that learning mode in which we were to become more obsolete faster and relearn and learn. So that is my basic message. Thank you very much, Upadhyay, for giving me this opportunity and a wonderful session.
So nice of you, sir. So nice of you. Anybody would like to speak? We will make him live on the
Jivitesh Roth, sir. Upadhyay ji, Jivitesh Roth has
You can
raised-
raise your hand.
Jivitesh Roth has raised his hand. Jivitesh Roth. Upadhyay ji, Jivitesh Roth has raised his hand. Jivitesh Roth. Jivitesh Roth.
Darshan, you would like to add anything?
No, I think Dr.
Achha.
Nataraj is saying there's one gentleman who's
Okay. Okay.
Jivitesh Roth. Jivitesh
Yes.
Roth has raised his Jivitesh Roth.
Jivitesh Rath.
Jivitesh Roth.
Okay, I'm just going to allow Jivitesh.
Gurvinder ji, allow Jivitesh Roth
So I
to.
allowed him, so he can
Huh?
speak now. I allowed him, so he can speak now. Sir.
Okay, Jivitesh unmute करिए, आ जाइए.
Okay.
बोलिए जीवितेश जी. अनम्यूट करिए, अनम्यूट.
ये तो अनम्यूट है ना?
या अभी ठीक है. Hearing.
Okay. Actually, the thing is, this new normal concept, it will vary from country to country. The New Zealand experience may not be applicable what we are facing through in India, and the pandemic situation. How there will be fit in all for future fit, fit in all concept for future fit for in the global scenario. Thank you all.
So
Okay,
I can answer that. It's kind of like, if we apply some thinking, and as we just heard from the experienced doctor there, that we have a choice individually and collectively to understand that every country, every region, every town, every household is going to have some variables relating to the pandemic. But if we become more aware of our own situations, and then consider how we can do things more collaboratively and collectively together, we will get through it. And, I opened the session with this acknowledgement that whilst in New Zealand we kind of have come through things, everything's not perfect here. We're still struggling in areas, we've still got challenges. The financial implications for our country are still enormous, as for every country, as for every person in the world. But if we understand, and, as we talked about, go through a bit of that grief and understand the implications, but make a choice about how we progress forward, then we can actually be in a better position. And it's not dismissing any impact or influence that this has on an individual, a family, a team, a business, a country. It's just progressing through it. And hence, thank you for the opportunity to connect in today and just be able to share some insights that we've had. You can take what you think is relevant for you and try and adapt it, apply it in your own environments. It will be different, it'll look different, but the principles are there, and the thinking that we wanted to promote will help you just hopefully be in a better position. And I just wanted to close by acknowledging that I did fulfill my promise of not mentioning the Cricket World Cup, although I did have my New Zealand flag in the background, but I've acknowledged that. Thank you, Darshan.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Anybody else? You can raise. One attendee who has raised hand.
One question is there.
Dr. Mohite. Dr. Mohite, yes. Yes, Dr. Saab. You can unmute yourself. You are mute.
Good evening to one and all.
Very
Gentlemen,
good evening,
really it was a wonderful presentation, and the insight, whatever you have put, absolutely the work, and rightly pointed out you, it is an individual thinking process towards the bird. Whole word is selling in one sheep itself. Now it's a time to align the things, align the thinking process, and we have to go out of the box. Rightly pointed out you guys, a wonderful presentation. Honestly speaking, the HR fraternity, whatever we are doing all together through ISTD is worth, and in days to come, definitely likewise, such activities will be continue. I'm thankful to all presenters and nice insight they have given. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gurvinder, we have Mr. Tariq Kakru from J&K.
One question is there.
Yes, yes.
one
Mr.
question is
President.
there. देखिए Q&A box में one question है, Q&A box में.
I have just seen it.
You see
You
that
can read, there's no problem.
Q&A.
Q&A, yes, one question is there. Mr. Santosh Kumar Setu Madhavan. This COVID era, no one is inescapable. The question, it is a very long. It is not a question, he is saying something.
Okay.
In the COVID era, no one is inescapable in the organization. It may happen, but one or other may get contracted with it. It means at any point of time, any organization may have less than 100% strength. I wish to know how the situation of managing production with less manpower, because one person getting infected in an organization, we may sometimes have to send few many on quarantine. Yes, I think this was the model. So how to take care? He meant to say, taking production ahead with the less number of manpower.
So Dr. Yogesh, I can share some stuff that we that's been enforced in New Zealand, which has been quite effective here. And one of the things, the key word is discipline. The key word is discipline. And what it is it's an acceptance that as this person has just pointed out here, it only takes one person that's infected to infect everyone around them quite quickly, and you don't even know. So the disciplines around the hygiene, the processes that we set up to enable us to continue to produce is important. Now that takes a discipline and commitment from everybody. And if we understand, like we talked about earlier in the session, the importance of actually acknowledging that we're not alone here, we are in this together, and collectively, if we understand and own our own actions, then we will get the results and we'll be able to increase our production. And one of the steps that we actually did within organisations in New Zealand is we got people to go through a period of reducing the output so that they could just survive in a controlled environment with the disciplines and the processes around hygiene and quarantine. And then as they became effective in operating that, they were able to then expand their production ability. So discipline is the word I would mention there.
Yes. See, nature of this virus. Yes.
It links into your slow down to speed up, slow down the process, to put in place the disciplines so people get comfortable looking after their hygiene as part of the process, and then you can speed back up again and minimize the impact on human casualties through the process.
So I just sorry, Dr. Yogesh, I just share one thing here. So when I managed the crises in Fonterra, where all of our product was exported to China, and they basically closed the border, and we ran out of product effectively to be able to deliver and export. The key thing is that we connected into our customers and we said, what is the actual product that you really need? Not what you want. What is it that you really need? And from there, we were able to actually reduce the actual production based off what we needed to do versus the wants, the wish list of the forecast order. And when you actually connect in and have the right conversations, as we talked about, you get a better understanding, which means that you're not actually diminishing your production. You're actually just stopping the stuff that was a want rather than a need. And you're doing it together with your customer. So you see the importance now. And this is where you're now walking beside them. And that's a mindset shift. It's kind of like, hey, our forecast said this, but actually now we're only producing this, but you're actually doing it together. And in our times of our inability to provide stock through droughts and situations we have here, that was a key thing we did. And that's something you want to think about in your production sector. Work with your customers and understand it.
Mr. Tariq, we have Mr. Tariq, Deputy Director, ATI J&K. If you are there, just unmute yourself. Yes, please.
With due respect to everybody, it's a really pleasure to be here with you all. My special thanks to Mr. Upadhyayji. I've learned a lot in this webinar. I'm looking forward to attend much more in future. Definitely, it was a really informative session, and it was taken, whatever was said by Mr. Don and other participants, it was taken, and God willing, we will be looking forward again to come and attend the same material. Thank you so much.
Thank you, boss, for joining. See, we have many attendees. See, if virus is anywhere, we can presume it is everywhere because it has started from one town and traveled across. Till that time, we do not have a technology. You put your finger and result is coming, you are corona-free, you are allowed to work. And everybody is checked in the workroom. That time we will not gain confidence. So thank you very much. I have to acknowledge we have Mr. Reddy from Chennai, Mr. Mukesh Jain, Chairman Delhi Chapter, my own colleague in National Committee, Mr. Subbarao from Chennai, and many more to for
Dr. Ruma Gomes, DLN
Ruma
Reddy.
Gomes, our Regional
DLN
Vice
Reddy.
President, yes, Palini from Pune. So if anybody would like to speak, we'll make
DLN
live on the Miss Anita Chaudhary Saab, Jeevte Rat ji.
Dr. Yogesh, if we can also be a little mindful because it's over.
नहीं मैं बस हो गया बस
It's all good, mate.
it is yes.
I just
So
want
All
it
good,
is-
loving it.
Joshi
Yeah.
Saab,
With the flow,
Dr.
mate. We'll
Joshi.
get thanks, Darshan.
Then I can understand it is going to be there are, I think 2 past some minute. So
Yeah.
we have already crossed some 15
Thank you.
minutes. Okay. So
Thank you very much. Thank
Mr. DLN Reddy last we will take for 1 minute.
you. Okay.
Reddy Saab बोलिए please.
ये तो खाना पूर्ति करना था.
Yes.
Okay.
And I have requested Dr. Vanwar to be brief. Reddy Saab, yes.
Reddy साहब आप
Can I-
unmute करिए. Unmute
Yes.
करिए.
Can I?
Yes,
Am
yes,
I-
please.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
This is for Don.
Yeah.
Well, congratulating you for coming out of the pandemic. And I don't know how you managed to get out of the pandemic, but what were your real problems during the pandemic? Did you have something like a migration of people like what we had in India, or you just had the same people working for you and taking care of them? I mean, is it was it really sort of an experience for you?
Yeah, so like everyone in the world, it affects everyone in a different way. And, I guess the thing that we had in New Zealand is that we made quick, informed decisions. And that was one of the, we will all work together to get through this. And that commitment and discipline was something that was really followed. In terms of our own business, hey, we struggled. We suddenly had clients who had programs booked in. We lost 60% of our bookings within the first week.
Oh.
So this is where we were going to be delivering leadership programs that were forecast, committed, and they basically stopped. Now,
Yeah.
what we were able to do is, as I just talked about in that in the phases, is really focus on not trying to sell and actually convince a customer, hey, don't worry, we can still do it. We can do it virtually for you and we'll run it tomorrow. Don't have those conversations. Just go, we're with you. We want to understand, and at the appropriate time, we'll work with you to offer you what you need. By the way, if you want us to support you and run some sessions for free, we'll do it. And hence we created the programs that Mark shared at the end there, that Navigating Your New Normal, where we offered that to anyone in the world for free. I ran 40 workshops in the first 3 weeks that went around the world, and not one of them was billed out. So what this does is it creates a sense of belonging. It motivates you as an individual, but it motivates your team as well. I relied on my team. Every day we connected in with each other. They had to tell me how they were feeling every morning on a scale of 1 to 10. Every day they gave me a number about how they were feeling. That enabled me to be able to lead and guide and support them when I needed to. But more importantly, they had to think about themselves, right? So that self-care. By answering the question, I was making sure that my people were actually thinking about themselves. And it wasn't about me. It was actually about us as a team being able to become more connected and supportive. And believe it or not, we became more connected as a global business. Our team in India, we've got such much richer connections with our team in India. We're just so privileged to have some amazing people who work for us in India. I can't wait to come and see you all. And, you know, it's those things are the things that got us through that period. We had challenges, you know, New Zealand still got challenges. We've made some good decisions and we've got some good results. We've done some things that haven't worked and we've pivoted quickly. I guess it comes back to the fact that it takes discipline, it takes commitment, but it also takes some courage to say,
Yes.
I have to acknowledge that things are going to be different, and what does that mean for me, my family, and my business?
Thank you, Don. We know it is early morning, you are there. So thank you very much, and sorry for extending time. But it is
don't be
also
sorry.
said, it is also
That's a
said,
privilege.
if you have leadership, female leadership in the country, head of the government, Corona is not very effective in those countries.
Yeah.
So that is also there. So thank you very much for a very wonderful session, Mr. Mark, Mr. Don, and Mr. Darshan also. And thank you very much to all the attendees who joined this evening. Do join us for other programs also. Thank you so much. Very good night.